What's the highest ranked player in the Locked On Top 100 that'll become available? And what's the highest ranked player in the Locked On Top 100 that could come to Utah? It's next on Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. And to the everydayers, you're the best. Greatly appreciate you. You're absolutely fabulous. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Jazz. All right, on today's show, we will look at the Locked On Top 100 and see which players might become available to be pieces for the Utah Jazz down the road as we build this complex building out of the rebuilding process here this season and beyond. And then also Tim LaComb joins us for segment 2 of the interview yesterday. Tim was great. If you did not catch yesterday's episode, go back and grab that with Timmy. He does great work for us. Super good dude. The coach, Tim LaComb, former BYU coach, and now Jazz pre-halftime post-game show analyst with Jake Scott, does amazing work for us. All right. First off, tip of the hat to Lauri into the Final Four. Finland's got a little model here. They're shooting threes and offensive rebounding. They went 17 of 31 from three. And then they got another little upset. Germany beat Slovenia. I think that's an upset just because Luka went down. Germany's really good. It's got the Wagner brothers, Dennis Schroeder, but will be interesting to see. They now play in the semifinals, and this is incredible. Finland in 2015 made this round of 16 and finished 16th overall. In the 2017, they finished 11th. Then COVID hits that kind of breaks up. So you go to 2022, and they made the quarterfinals, and now here we are in 2025. And they're making the semifinals. This has been a meteoric rise. Lauri's a large part of it. Coaching staff's a large part of it. They have Memphis' head coach on the staff. And they have a guy back in Finland who's kind of the architect of all this. But this is a pretty incredible run. They're hosting. This was kind of the year they were supposed to do it. So this is really cool. Lauri last night has 17 points. So he doesn't have to score 35 or go crazy. They've got kind of a mix. He shoots 7 of 12 from the field, 2 of 5 from three. Really, really impressive. And then as Sean Sheldon told us, they had to control the boards against Georgia, and 14 offensive rebounds is what they allowed in that game, which is a lot, but it's not tremendous. So really incredible for Lauri. Semifinals coming up against Germany. I think at this point you might say that Germany, I don't know. I mean, the 4 teams are left are Germany, who's got Schroeder and Wagner, Greece, who's got Giannis, and Turkey, who's got Şengün. I don't know. I don't know what the rankings were on the brackets now that I think about it, but I would say either Giannis just being Giannis or Germany with their depth are the favorites at this point. So be interesting to see. So this may be the toughest matchup that they're going to get in this process. Germany's got Oscar da Silva, who plays for Orlando on the team. Bonga, who's been kind of or Tristan da Silva plays for Orlando. Oscar played for Stanford. Franz Wagner is on that team. Daniel Tice, Dennis Schroeder. I mean, names that if you're a diehard NBA fan, Isaac Bonga, that's a borderline, that's an NBA team close. I mean, there's probably 1 or 2 guys that are not, but generally anyone's getting a lot of minutes played in the league or adjacent to the league. All right, the Locked On Top 100 was done, top 100 players in the NBA, and the top 100 are Jokic, Shea, Giannis, Luka, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, and Jason Tatum. There's a chance that 2 of the top 10 players will become available. Giannis could become available out of Milwaukee. There's no question. That's the next one everyone's waiting for. Donovan could become available out of Cleveland. And in theory, Anthony Edwards is the one after Giannis that everyone's going to zero in on media-wise. So there's some real chance movement will take place here. I don't know how the Jazz get Giannis. But obviously they'll try, but I don't see how that happens. Milwaukee's got to just ride this thing for as long as they can. Anthony Edwards is pretty far down the road. He signed. They're good. They're going to be good for 3. But, there's a lot of feeling he's going to want to get back to the South, grew up in Georgia. And then Donovan's just a question of whether Cleveland, at some point, they try this again and again. It starts they go exactly how Utah goes. That's exactly the question on Donovan. So does it happen exactly the same way? And I'd be surprised if Utah reacquired Donovan, though I would not totally outrule it or rule it out. Sorry. Part of me, as I was preparing for this, and I was like, my first reaction, well, the Jazz would never bring back Donovan. It's like, well, why not, actually? Why wouldn't you? He's great. He's a super kid. Having been in Cleveland, he's probably figured out how to do this. He's now engaged. Maybe. Who knows? Just on the wildest thoughts of wildest thoughts. The 11 through 20 list, actually, I find harder to see anyone getting moved other than, I really Jalen Williams just signed an extension. So the next is Durant, who's in Houston now. LeBron, Tyrese Halliburton coming off the Achilles in Indiana. Anthony Davis in Dallas. Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Kawhi Leonard, Devin Booker, Karl Anthony Towns, and Jalen Williams. So the only question is young Jalen Williams decides he wants his own team, doesn't want to be under Shea, and wants out at some point, or when Chet becomes even a bigger deal. That's the scenario there where the cap gets them, player scenario. That would be the scenario where Jalen Williams becomes available. By the way, just a side note that I had while I was prepping for the show. We all killed Nico Harrison for the Luka trade, which we should have. But the one part I don't think he should have been necessarily killed for is if he wanted a specific player because he thought he was keeping Dallas competitive and he believed it had to be a defensive player. Anthony Davis is the 14th best player in the NBA. He wasn't going to get LeBron in that trade. He didn't want Durant probably in that trade. Tatum, he probably couldn't get. I'm not sure that I think Donovan's really the 9th best player in the NBA. Brunson, same kind of concept. You're not going to trade. He wanted a different type of player. He wanted a defensive-minded, bigger player for Luka. You can decide that's wrong, but that's what he wanted. Victor Wembanyama and Anthony Davis, kind of the next guys. You weren't getting Victor. Supposedly he made that call. And so, there were parts of that trade that were ridiculous. The idea of trading Luka is ridiculous. But if he actually wanted a big defensive center who could do versatile things, that was the guy. And so maybe he didn't need to call around to everyone. I've always thought that some of the calling around thing, he should have gotten more. He shouldn't have had to give up as much. But the calling around thing, he got the player he wanted. Back to the Jazz. Jaylen Brown at 21. Depending what happens with Boston. Boston's in real flux, right? They're basically punting this season, got under the tax, reset, and are going back at it. Jaylen Brown's probably a likely piece of that. But if something goes wrong in this, he is getting paid an awful lot of money. Don't know that Indiana signs Pascal Siakam. Surprised he was at 22 ahead of some of these players. I don't think we want Harden or Jaren Jackson or Paulo Banchero signed. Trae Young at 26 is available, available this offseason. Interesting little collection of players there, by the way. Trae Young, Darius Garland, and Ja Morant all next to each other on the top 100 list. What's interesting here is of players that the Jazz can go get, we now go to the top 40. And I do think you start to get players that become available here. Bam Adebayo in Miami, I don't think it's available, but if they ever rebuild. Domantas Sabonis probably does get available. Sacramento's probably got to go full rebuild at some point. Don't know about Jamal Murray. Franz Wagner, I doubt it. Alfred Şengün, I think, becomes available at some point in Houston. Whether he actually fits how they play now that they have Durant will be really interesting. Derek White's just not a star. He's just damn good. Tyrese Maxey. Zubac is really high on this list at 39. I was a little blown away by that. Kyrie Irving at 40. So what's interesting here is the Jazz kind of try to go through this, and we've kind of talked about that the Jazz kind of have to do here, which is, the first step is Ace Bailey kind of has to hit, and then the next year's guy has to hit, and you start moving on, and then you're going to start adding probably one big piece with your cap money at some point. we just ran through the list. Like, funny is that Donovan actually becomes like the best player you could possibly get out of this after having traded Donovan, because I don't think that we can go get Giannis, and I don't think it's a wild till Anthony Edwards available, and I don't know if we can do that. And then in numbers 11 through 20, there just wasn't anybody you really wanted. And then 21 through 30, maybe Jaylen Brown if Boston's thing goes awry, and maybe Trae Young. Certainly Trae Young's available. And 31 through 40 didn't really have anyone. When you get into 50, you get into some of these interesting players like a Zion Williamson, LaMelo Ball, the players I talked about all offseason that I thought we should go get. Like, I think I've always been big on trading for Zion or trading for LaMelo Ball. They're the highest level talent you can get. And I think right now would have been the time to do it, because if they don't work out, you just end up losing again, and you might lose with them anyway. But so it's, to me, what's interesting there is just how difficult it is going to be to acquire talent and how little talent is available. That's my point of that. All right. Tim LaComb continues. We'll talk about more about starting lineups, how to use Isaiah Collier, some other interesting concepts here on the show with Tim LaComb as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. For the win, it's 5 Hour Energy. This is cool. First of all, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion is ready for you to fuel up and turn it up. The grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the ionic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies and making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out of the course or just need a little extra push to power through the day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. So, golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. So the grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now, you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the U.S. Tee it up this next visit visit. This is pretty cool. 5, the number 5. You can, if you're on video, you can see on the screen. HEWIN. That's 5 HEWIN.com for rules and entry. And that is your chance to win a trip to any golf tournament for 2 in the United States. Excludes the Masters and ends October 31st, 2025. That's 5 HEWIN.com. It's day 2 at Tim LaComb. We're not even faking it. We recorded this in 1 setting. You get it in 2. We actually shower. We do things. We record at night. Okay. He's a rock star. Tim LaComb is the radio pre-halftime and post-game show studio expert, former coach at BYU. He is with us here. We finished the last show talking about starting lineups, and lineups in general are super interesting to me because I don't really know where Collier and Clayton fit in, just because I have a question on whether Collier's shooting is good enough to really play a lot. And I have a question of whether a rookie point guard can really play a lot. I think it's going to be super interesting. But I think what's most interesting to me is the various lineups that Will Hardy can put together. You could put a switching 5-man lineup up with Lauri, Taylor Hendricks, and Ace Bailey, centerless lineup. And I don't care who your guards are. Put whoever you want there. And have it be Keyonte and Cody. You're huge, and you're not small without a center. You're 7'1", 6'10", 6'9". You're really in. Taylor's big. Multiple rim defenders. You'd have to rebound, but I just think there's a lot of lineup options here that are interesting.
I totally agree. I mean, and we talked about in yesterday's segment. We talked about. See how I did that.
That was pretty impressive, everyone.
I did have to
that's
call
a real
it.
pro at work right there.
No, we were talking about shooting, and the luxury with a guy, like Bryce Sensabaugh, who just absolutely lit it up this summer. And I really shot the ball great all year last year. Got on a heater, obviously, kind of 3/4 of the way through the season and rode that home. But yeah, I think depending on what you're trying to do, and it's really what I like about Will Hardy. He kicks the narrative of what a pro coach does, to the curb and kind of does his thing. I can see him having a lot of fun with the versatility of the lineups for sure.
All right. Locked On just released its top 100 players. There was one Jazz player in it, in Lauri Markkanen. Who's the next Jazz player on the top 100? And then, depending how you answer, I then might ask it again.
Okay.
So who is the next Jazz player in the top 100?
I think it's Walker. And I know he's kind of close, but I do believe like he was a man last year. Like he really was. And, all of the stuff in his second year, kind of going through a slump and questioning himself, that was all gone. And I talked about it early in the year. The way I explained it is I felt like he leaned into the things he's really good at. And he stopped worrying about the things that you've got to do to be a quote unquote great player.
Well, that's really where we opened yesterday's episode. Okay, sorry. Just thought I wanted to do it too.
Thank you.
Okay.
You've got way more experience at this. I only get a crack or two a year with you. So
continue.
But our blood runs deep, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. We've known each other for a long, long time.
So no, I'm so old. I forgot what you're talking about right there, but I do believe Walker Kessler would be the next. And then I think the next guy's Ace.
Yeah. All right.
Better
be.
I want to
honestly
thing out though.
Better be
credit. Yeah, he better be, because that's what they need him to be. And if they wanted him to do, but I got to give you some credit. You and I talk a lot, period, but we talk a lot around the draft and our thoughts and guys that we're in on, we're out on. You told me early on, you're like, if that dude could fall to us, I think he's an all-star. And that really, because I was probably reading too much about him and allowing all that stuff to form a narrative. And when I actually dug into his game, I totally saw that.
The first time I watched him, I was watching Rutgers, and there's a show, I did it. I was like, wait, why is Ace Bailey not going 2? Like, what? Why are we like at the time? Honestly, I thought Ace Bailey was 6'10", and there is a difference between being 6'10" and 6'8". If he was really 6'10" at the time, I was like, I'm taking 6'10" over 6'4" every time. Now, maybe that's how you make mistakes, but like I'm taking 6'10".
Well, 6'10" that moves like that.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's 6'8", so then it's a different player. Like, but it's still fine. Like, it's a different player. All right, so let me flip the question a little bit. And we can talk about it in either of two ways. If we look at the way the Jazz are going to grow, the way this thing's going to work, Ace Bailey's got to hit. Whoever we draft this year's got to hit. And the guy we draft the year after that's got to hopefully, like, two of those guys have to hit. Then you already have Lauri, who's a top 50 player. You have free agent money to bring in another player. You got Walker, who's an established player. Now suddenly you got 5, right? Now you can start piecing together. And you can bring guys in and do so to some extent of the other 6 guys, Collier, Clayton, Cody, Sensabaugh, Filipowski, Keyonte. You actually only need 2 of them to hit. You only need 2 of them to hit. And they don't have to really, really hit. They just have to be really viable, good, high-level rotation players. It'd be nice if one of them could start. The fact is, how Ace does and how the next year's draft pick does is the future of this, whether this franchise, whether it works or not. Which of those, Collier, Clayton, Cody, Keyonte, they all sound the same, Filipowski, Hendricks, and Sensabaugh. There's 7. I missed one. Which of those 7, give me the 2 most likely in your mind to be viable 25 minute a night players that as this thing comes together, they're a part of it. You really only need 2 of the 7.
The first one's easy because I think he may already be there, and that's Flip.
Wow, you really are in on this. Is a big change for a year ago for him.
Well, dude, I'm going to tell you, I said this because I was not. You and I both went out after night 1 of the draft last year, and had dinner together. And we were talking, and I got some intel that was going to be the pick. And, we kind of, again, there was a lot of narrative that was being cooked, which happens. But then in just general, just the whole Duke thing, and, there's some of that stuff's hard to swallow. He has been, then I dug into the tape, and my take on him was plug and play. In today's NBA, like, his intellect is really good. I really believe that guy sees the game at such a high level. And so it's easier for him to make what seem like hard plays. He makes the simple play, and he makes it repeatedly. And then he's a threat offensively. He can back you down. The spin doesn't work quite as well as it did in college, but he still gets it from time to time. But I do believe he's grown his game. He's improved his physicality. I think that guy's viable. And I think there's a ton of other teams in the league that would really value a guy like that. So I think he's on his way to there.
All right, let's take it. I mean, I remember the night well. My reaction, both reaction was kind of same. We didn't love him at 17 and 32. We thought, you got to take him.
Yeah.
But there was something we did, like, I'll admit it, like there was something at 17 or in that kind of where the draft where he had been talked about. I was like, I'm trying to figure out the comp that gets him to where you're talking about. Okay. So everyone wants to call him Kelly Olynyk, and that keeps him as such a defensive liability that really he isn't one of the two. Like, he isn't, because Kelly Olynyk bounces around and he kind of plays, but he's a 15 to 20 minute a night player. When the playoff comes, he's a 12 minute a night player. So the one I had the other day that I thought was a little interesting, and body size is surprisingly similar, is Nikola Vucevic, who became an all-star. Now, questionable all-star, but fine. But like, Nikola Vucevic has been a questionable defender his entire career. He actually passes it pretty well. He averages 3 or 4 assists a game, and he goes and puts up like 19 and 10. And they're the same size. They're actually 6'10". I think Flip's 240 and Vucevic is 250. There's no reason why Flip, he's pretty thick and big right now, but there's no reason he can't get to 250. And there's a lot of similarities to him. Is that a possible comp for him of how he does what you're talking about? Because I don't have another one on where Kyle Filipowski, and I can't figure out what position he is to be the player you're talking about.
Well, I do. I think he has to, and it's really the luxury of playing along Ace, Taylor, Lauri. Goodness gracious, you've got 6'10" all over the place. It certainly helps, but we saw it last year. Like, for him to compete at the 5, he's really got to bulk up, and he's got to be able to deliver blows instead of kind of constantly receiving them. But no, I think that's a great comp. I've always said Olynyk, and the reason as Olynyk ages, but you look back at like those Celtic teams that started to kind of build, I think they got swept in the Eastern Conference Finals by LeBron, but he was a part of those teams. Like, I'm just talking about guys that have like a really high intellect to be able to play the game, and then they're skilled. I think there's a place for those guys in today's league. It is not necessarily, the benefit for a guy like him is it's not the league it used to be where they just threw it into Alonzo Mourning or Shaq or Akeem and just let them go to work. There's a lot more to that position now. And so in some ways that's maybe to Kyle's benefit.
Who's number 2 on Tim LaComb's list of guys that are going to be? He went Filipowski. A little surprising. This is interesting because I think if I was going to give this, Kyle would not have necessarily been one of my 2. So this tells you how exciting this year is going to be. Who's Tim's other one next on Locked on Jazz? Who is your second one, Tim LaComb?
Well, my second one is a lot for the same reason. You look at versatility, your ability to bring something every time you step out on the floor. And I think that's Taylor Hendricks.
Okay. I think I would have gone. Taylor Hendricks is on my list also. And I would just say this because at 6'9", 210, they're just, you don't actually have to do like, that is so special that the amount of other things you have to do is not as like if you can defend at 6'9", 210 and knock down 35% of your threes, you're Jaden McDaniels.
You're a player. That's right.
You're Robert Covington.
That's right.
You're Jaden those guys they played 12 years in the league and they play 25 to 30 minutes a night.
Yep. No question. And he's in my mind, like, and it's not just that he can, it's his versatility. He gets switched onto a point guard. We've seen it. He'll stand him up a couple of times. He may get beat now and again, but like he is a guy who can dance with those guys. And now as he gets healthy and more reps, I'm excited to see, hopefully that same type of step we saw in Walker, just a big leap from where he's been.
So my second guy, and this is surprising probably, is Keyonte. Like I've really warmed up on this. And that is one, I am sold on the commitment he's had in the offseason. Like last offseason, he went to Finland and he did all these things he was supposed to do. And this season, he's just been pretty much in Salt Lake City, Utah, working. And so that has swayed me. There's a bunch of numbers that sway me too on Key. His free throws went way up. His assists went way up. There's a lot. His shot selection is freaking horrible. And if he can just fix, like the reason he shoots such a bad percentage is because the shots he takes, how difficult they are, and where he takes them on the floor, so few at the rim, that if he actually has a good night, it's still not very good, just because the actual shots are so difficult. I think he'll fix that. Chris Jones, his coach, is working with him on it. That was a huge focus this offseason. And I just kind of feel like he grows up. Maybe he's Jared Bayless. Maybe that's all he's going to be. But I think he's Anthony Simons. Like, I think he grows up. Anthony Simons is a really good shooter and never had these 39, 31. So maybe that's not right. But like, I just think I'm positive. I feel good that this is going to be we're not going to recognize Keyonte George this year. I think early there'll be an emotional burst every now and then, and he catches himself and he grows. I thought he grew a lot last year.
Well, and I think that is the key is growth. I was going to say maturity, but it's to minimize all the things that are important to young players, and that's like status and this, that, and the other. When Keyonte makes it about, at the end of the day, just winning games. You look at any great team that's won. It doesn't matter. Like that team is held in such esteem across the board, and the best players, the team, anybody associated with it, there's a payoff. And I think that's the essence of sport. And to me, that's kind of what Keyonte's lacked. He's come up kind of through that AAU thing, and he was getting a ton of shoes as a young kid, and there's an entitlement that grows in there. And I do believe that he got better year one to year two, no question about it. But I think if he wants to be the player that he can really be, he's got to look in the mirror and just totally be honest, and say, Key, this ain't about me. This is about how can I make everybody around me better and at the same time achieve and grow. And I would love to see it, but I do think that's the piece.
I mean, I feel like he's got 3 doors he can walk through at this point in his career. Like, this is where he is right now.
Let's make a deal. Let's make a deal, right?
Let's make a deal.
Yeah.
And the first one he can walk through is the Bones Highland door, where midway through this year, we send him somewhere, we give up on him, then his next team gives up on him, and then by the time he's 24 years old, he's on his 3rd team, barely playing. That's door number 1 for Keyonte George. That's possible.
And
door number 2.
Wait, let me add on that real fast.
Yeah.
Bones Highland, it bums me out because I collect sports cards and I had so many of his rookie cards.
Okay.
I thought he was going to be a hit. He's a miss. Go ahead.
Door number 2 is the Jared Bayless door. 11 years in the NBA, never more than 2 years with one franchise because they have you and they're like, okay, we're done. But you're so talented, you stay in the league. And you play like 24, 25 minutes a night because you're just really good. And door 3 is Anthony Simons, CJ McCollum kind of door. And I have a little belief that we're going to see Keyonte walk toward door 3 this year.
When he is right, and you can see it when he's right, and everything's kind of where he's on attack. And you mentioned this year, like his ability to get to the line, that was a big step for him. Because as you mentioned, his success around the rim hasn't been awesome, but if you can get fouled going there, and be able to stand 15 feet away and toe it up and knock them in, that's just as good. So I think he learned that great skill. I would buy what you're saying, but I think that is the step that has to happen for him. He's got to take that next step, which is going to have, some things where he's got to just lean into it as opposed to fight it.
What is your thoughts on Isaiah Collier year 2?
Well, I think his ability to see the floor is so intriguing. And you mentioned it earlier, his inability to knock down shots at a better percentage will be probably what makes it hard to play him. Spacing is just at a premium in the league. And you and I, when I was coaching college basketball, and every year we'd play a game up there at Delta Center, and you'd be there, maybe you'd be preparing for the Jazz game as we finished an afternoon game. And you would just say, man, I can't even watch. I don't know how. Like, there's no spacing, Tim. And I was like, what are you talking about? And now after 5 years, I've been doing this for 5 years now, watching on a really good team, the pristine spacing that exists. And if you've got one little flaw in it, the defense can really foul you up. So he's just got to, he's got all the other things. I think his ability to run the floor and get his team to run the floor. He brought great pace to the game, but can he knock down 30? I think the number is 35. He's got to be.
That's baseline, 35. Right?
Yep.
By the way, here's my theory on this. I've not talked to any coaches, but coach, tell me if I'm nuts. I think he comes off the bench and he plays with Filipowski in a 5-out lineup because you're playing Filipowski with Taylor, Cody, and Bryce or Keyonte or whoever. Then or maybe it's Clayton and Collier together. The other guys can all shoot, but I don't know you can play Isaiah Collier and Walker Kessler together.
It's true. I mean, in some essences, it's a perfect triangle and 2 type of situation where you're not in the lane, but you just clog everything up with those 2 defenders.
Right.
And
so let Collier play 5 out where he can drive to the basket, everyone's stretched, and he can use.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to use him this year.
It'd be nice if you'd share that with me prior to making me put out the starting 5.
That wouldn't be fun.
Okay.
I did prep you with the questions earlier in the day. We have another job, but if we can get rid of that, so you just work with me every day, we'll be good.
I would love it.
What do you expect out of Walter Clayton Jr. as a rookie?
I love his command. He was a guy that was so fun to watch in the moment last year. It was just time after time. And Jamil Hawkins, our Emmy-winning producer of
Jayhawk,
now
known as
JME on the radio side, is a Florida Gator. And so it was fun to watch the tournament while Jazz games were going on, and Jamil was fogging up the glass in there. So excited. But Walter Clayton, to me, is a guy who I think he's got the panache to play. I think you got to have a little bit of that toughness. Reminds me of the kid who plays for Golden State, played at Connecticut. I can't think of his name right now.
Played at Golden State, played at Connecticut. Spencer?
Okay, yes, Spencer. Cam Spencer. That's his name.
Well, the one.
Just a toughness. Toughness.
Pat Spencer's the one. The Spencer on Golden State's the one who won the lacrosse Hall of Heisman Trophy.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. And but when he walks out there, all the other guys look at him like, who's this guy? And he's like, I'll show you who I am. I think that's kind of how Clayton is. I think he's going to have some success. The game is going to move awfully fast. We've seen it with rookies. So shot selection, eliminating turnovers, kind of just making simple plays to get some confidence from the staff. And there's pretty crowded back there. We'll see, how he could break in.
It's funny. We talked about the spin move of Kyle Filipowski all year last year. Clayton actually has a little bit of like his own version of that, which is the one dribble sidestep 3 he wants to take all the time. And in summer league, there was a play where he had an open 3 and he took a bounce into the 3 and got it blocked.
Yes.
Because he's now he wasn't even in the NBA. He was in summer league. And so that's going to be the one I'm watching with him is like, how much does he learn? I'm going to get the ball and I got to shoot it. Like I'm a dead-eye great shooter, but it's actually a catch-and-shoot league. If I'm playing off the bounce, it's only going to be off a pick and roll and probably not going under on me for very long. So that shot's going to be pretty hard for me to get. I've got to become a catch-and-shoot dead-eye.
You know what the NBA is great at is side contest. So you get the ball screen set, the bigs dropping, and you've just got whoever it is, Durant, or I mean, they're just running at you with everything they have from the side as you're trying to shoot the basketball, and then just trying as best they can to contest the shot. But that's what you talk about. And I would imagine we talked about bullet points in yesterday's show. I would say the bullet point for him is get the quick release. He's working on getting that shot off quick.
And if he shoots it like he did, then he's set.
He's viable, right?
Right. All right, Timmy, you're great. I look forward to working with you soon. We'll get to do another year together. We'll have a lot of fun. You'll show up in your various garbs before the game. If I'm lucky, I'll walk in the arena with you. If not, you'll stop by the broadcast booth. I'll walk up and bother you and Jake, I promise, all the time. Jake's always looking at me like, I got to structure this show. And you walk in and tell me a damn story. Now we're late. It's better when David James comes and just talks to you the whole game.
Oh, man, it's hard to watch. I mean, don't tell anybody, but
don't tell anyone.
I love him to death, but man, that dude can talk.
No. David James?
David James.
You know what?
Tell a friend.
You know, if you have David show on with David James, it's really cool. Is you can actually in a morning show, and it's he's solo and PK's on. You can actually eat breakfast while you're on the show, and no one will ever know.
Easiest money ever made.
He just keeps going. He says the same thing about me. All right. I love you the best. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
That is Tim LaComb. We now send you the first ever national NBA channel. It is Locked on NBA. Remember, Locked on NBA, the regular daily podcast. Grab it on your podcast or on YouTube as well. Tim LaComb, the great one. Thank him for us. This has been Locked on Jazz.